Good morning. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. Great to see you this morning. Hump Day Wednesday. Thank God we are getting there. Isn't that awful? I'm not wishing the time to pass. It's just been good to see you. Good morning, Heather. It's great to see you. Linda, howdy. Oh, checking in with each other. Jill, good to see you. It's you from the cold house in Virginia. Oh, day 8 with the heat out. That is pioneer days, huh? That is rough when that happens. Mom, I almost said Wolf because I call my mom Wolf. Good to see you. Tweet, tweet, early morning. Oh, Kirsten, good to see you. And Penny, hello in Vermont and South Carolina. Good to see you. I hope I posted the thing in the right place. I was trying to do a lot of things this morning. Doreen, great to see you. Having a good day so far. Just really busy, just never ending busy. Looking forward to not busy. Sue's good to see you in snowy, cold Kansas. Barbara, great to see you. Hello. Everybody's clocking on. Martha, oh, Martha, good to see you. Good morning in Ontario. Thanks for checking in with me the other day. This is the first day in a while that both kids are back at school, which is nice. I hope that they're both okay though. I see over here that Linda's logged on. Good to see you. Yeah, I told them both if they are, not feeling well to call me instead of sticking it out. So we'll see how that goes. I keep checking my mail to see if they're both actually doing all right because they both had, I think, different problems. Joss, I think, had a stomach thing, but I just had this fear of sending her to school and her being pukey because she was so pukey, and then eating something and not feeling well. And I thought, God, how stressful would that be for a kid if she got all nauseous and buckety and eating a bucket kind of thing, and how bad that would be because kids just don't forget that stuff, do they? I mean, I remember peeing in my pants in the third grade, and since then that was it. Right through high school, followed me to college. That was it. So I never want to set them up for that kind of a good time. I know it's bound to happen, right? Wishing Well Farm. Hello in Mississippi. What a sweet name. That is so charming, Wishing Well Farm. Oh, that sounds so idyllic and great. Welcome, Dave. Good to see you. Coffee's perked. Ready for coffee time. Lisa, good to see you. Oh, it's good to see everybody logging on. I'm bracing myself for a long day because I'm super excited and I am all set up for class tonight. It's the first, they're independent classes, right? It's not a two-parter, but I'm running the Designing Like series. Today is the first one, tonight at 6 to 8 Eastern Standard Time. And that is Designing Like, and the subject this month is Mid-Century Modern, MCM. Um, so many exercises. I'm trying to order my head because there's so many things that I want to do for it, and there's so many angles I want to hit. But like I said yesterday, this class is going to come with a document, right? I'm going to send everybody this huge document after. So I am not being glass half empty, but I'm anticipating not getting to everything that I want to get to in terms of exercises. So I might shoot through like I sometimes do and say, listen, this is a great exercise to do if you'd like to do this at home kind of thing, so that we can get to everything and at least I can get all my content in, because I'm working with like a 70-page document that I want to fly through during the class time, which is 2 hours. So I'm very excited and maybe a little bit over prepared. So I know many of you I'm seeing tonight for that. If you want to take that class, it's not too late. You can log on for tonight or Sunday. It's and or. You can log on twice if you want to, if you feel like you're going to get a different thing out of it twice. Because, of course, whenever I run these classes, there is always that sort of organic flow. And with people asking questions and brainstorming and putting ideas out there as well, depending on how that goes, sometimes we take different directions in these classes, and that's also why they're recorded. So if you're not able to make it to either and you still want the content and you want all the drawings and everything that go with it so you can DIY at home, that's also possible too. Many people do that and just don't log on, which is also a possibility. Life is so busy, huh? So that's coming up tonight. Cindy, good to see you in Northern Illinois. 6 inches of snow. Oh, this morning and more to come. Oh man, yeah. Wishing Well Farm, thank you. Actually at work, taking a break, a little needle punch, and finally, oh, I'm so glad you did. Are you doing a traditional needle punch or are you doing the Russian, the miniature needle punch? I have to say, I've been working on a miniature needle punch, this because I typically do traditional, right? Because it's more sort of aligned to traditional rug hooking. And putting those two things together is something that I've just historically done, I guess, because they seem to go together. And then this is the year that I second guess all of this stuff that's already in my head. Like, why do they go together better than, for example, miniature punch, and rug hooking? So I started working on a pattern for the book that I'm working on. It's a ton of exclusive patterns in that book, and they are my best patterns so far. So I really hope the book is beautiful and turns out the way that I'm hoping it turns out, because I'm working on a great pattern and it is mini punch. And I have to say, I am loving it. And I also love traditional punch, like the Oxford style punch, right? But somehow with mini punch, I just find it's so much less likely to screw it up. Like, I don't know what it is because it seems so small and fiddly, doesn't it? It's like a tiny syringe with like such limited fiber that you can put through it. These mini punches usually come in the three sizes, going back to the original Russian punch. That was the three sizes, like 1 strand, 2 strand, 3 strands. But I'm using something that's a little bit bigger for this project. I'm using what's called the Pretty Punch, which I like very much. Also the Ultra Punch. All of the punches are great, but I particularly like this thing that I'm using right now. And I have to say, unlike, I have to be so careful when I'm working on traditional punch, and obviously I teach traditional punch and all that stuff. And there's always the possibility when I'm not paying attention or when I have the wrong glasses on, of getting too close to the row before or the loop before and hitting the same hole and popping it out, in reverse the other way onto the right side. But I have to say, with the miniature punch, it is so much harder to do that because that weaver's cloth that's your backing instead of monk's cloth or rug warp is so fine that those holes are microscopic. It's almost like, and I've done this about 10 times already this morning, when you're super frustrated with saving something on the computer and it's like, do you want to save over and you're like, and you just start hitting keys randomly just to make a file name? I did that so many times already this morning. And the chance of hitting the same keys to create the same file name is almost zero. Same thing with the weaver's cloth. It's so tiny that the chance of hitting the same hole, even when you are in the region of, is like it's almost impossible. So I've done a pretty large piece for miniature punch. And when I turn it over, there's only 2 instances of the loop actually getting pushed out because I was too close. And I just think, man, this is good, isn't it? Small scale, you get through projects quicker, right? You start working on it and you're going to be done in a day or two because they're so small. Or you work on a bigger project and then you're looking forward to the next thing. It's just fun. It's something different. I'm really enjoying it immensely. Let me get back to the thread and see. Oh, lots of buddies came on. Oh, good. I thought it was going to be a quiet day. I love to see so many buddies chiming in here. Let's see, Wishwell Farm. Doing a little punch needle, Cindy. And Becky, good morning. Lots of snow coming to Indiana. Oh, dear. Pat, they say over-prepare and go with the flow. That's right. That's true. It's better to be over-prepared than under-prepared because there's nothing I hate more. I love to wing it, but only when I feel really I love to wing it and improvise in any way, but only when I know in the back of my mind that there's plenty, right? Because it's so easy and it's so much fun to improvise. But only when you know that there's something to pull on that's like solid and stable. Otherwise, it's just a bluff session, right? Which I'll never set myself up for that. Cat's Gallery, hello, and Crystal, good morning. Oh my gosh, is that Shubenacati? Is that Groundhog? Was it Groundhog Day today? Oh my gosh, was it Groundhog Day? It must be 6 more weeks so that's your Punxsutawney Phil, I guess. Is that the Canadian version? Oh, what a jerk, huh? Oh, man. Poor little thing. Everybody watching him. April, good to see you. Just learning, got a kit for Christmas. Fantastic. How fun is that? You can always ask questions here. I noticed somebody posted in our Facebook group, which is Rug Cooking and Punch Needle Club. Somebody posted the other day, does this group include bunka, which is that contra, that reverse punch needle, right? Where you work traditional size punch needle, not the mini, but you're working on the back and your intention is to make the back the correct side. So you're not working in reverse like you normally would with punch. You're intending to make that back side that you're looking at as you work the correct side. So, and of course, everybody wrote yes, because of course, every kind of rug making is included in our group. It's all interesting. It's all related. It all crosses over. Nancy, good to see you from windy and cold Las Vegas. Oh dear. Martha says, Wyatt and Willie predicts an early spring for Ontario, but I don't trust our little groundhog. Oh boy, she speaks with a forked tongue, that little one, huh? Mom says, Crystal, our little rodent did the same. It is Groundhog Day, I guess. Oh, are they rodents? They're not mammals. I guess they look like they're related to rodents, don't they? Interesting. Oh, Courtney, good to see you. Beautiful winter wool. Oh, thank you. Well, I busted them out because, let me just say hello to Ron, hello to Cindy. It is Groundhog Day. What a ding dong I am. I missed it. 2222. I noticed that too. Lauren, isn't that funny? What does it mean? Is this lottery ticket day? I was thinking that as I wrote it for coffee time, actually. I thought this has got to be some kind of special and magical number. Let's make it a good day. Turn it around because it's a very bleak day for us here in Connecticut. I thought I would, this one is very fine. Wishing Well Farm says, this one is very fine, a very small needle in it. Takes two strands. Okay, so that is the miniature punch or the Russian punch. So that is great. It's very easy to do. The thing that's the most tricky about, for me, traditional punch and Russian punch, the mini punch, is the possibility of snagging your yarn as you punch, right? Because sometimes it's caught up in your armpit, your sleeve, down the side of the couch, and you don't realize it's caught up and it's just a tiny bit of weight and tension on it, but it's enough to make the loops not stay, and that is what drives me crazy. That's why I like my pretty punch. I can't believe I'm saying this out loud because it's like one of my great secrets, but I have the pretty punch that, this is so corny, it's pink, and on top it's got this wire thing like this, and it holds the spool on top. It's like, you have to get the chapettes, which are the spools that go with this particular thing, or you could roll your own bobbins. But it actually sits on top of the pen. So there's no chance that one thing is eliminated from a frustration pool of possibilities because it's sitting on top of the pen and you're punching as you go and it's feeding directly from the top of your punch right through to the bottom. And I have been really enjoying that because if there's one thing that happens with punch that really gets me is that as soon as I take my eye off the ball, it snags and the loops don't stay. And then I go, why aren't the loops? And then I realize that something's snagged and it's 0 to 100, So it's a cool little tool if you're interested in getting started. It's a very cool little tool. I have been enjoying it immensely. Thanks, Kirsten. Thumbs up. Yes, please. Cindy says, I live close to where the Groundhog Day was filmed. A Woodstock Willie did not see his shadow. Oh, dear. That was a beautiful movie. I really liked that movie. I've seen it many times. I love it. Doreen, 222 is a message of hope, representative of balance, harmony, life choices, commitment, compromise, and trust. Well, that is beautiful. That is beautiful. 222. I love that. That is beautiful. We're going to go with that. It can't get any better than that, surely, right? So last night I put out a bunch of orders, and I realized that some of the current swatch kits that I just brought out like a week ago, the Vintage Tea Room, these guys, those are going to be arriving soon. So I thought I will spoil the surprise and tell you what the pattern is, the free pattern on fiber tape that comes with your swatch set. This is the swatch set here, and I do really like it. It's super soft colors. There are 4 colors that are quite, well, this one's a silvery gray, so not so much this one. This one is the one called Lady Gray, like the tea. But there are 3 that probably on camera look like the same white, but they're really not. There's one that's quite white, that is Sugar Cube. There's one that's more yellow, and that one is Clotted Cream. And then there's one that's kind of in the middle with more of like orangey undertone, and that's Porcelain Teacup. So there are 3 distinctly different whites. It's nice to put them together too, right? So this is the swatch set, and this is the pattern. This is an antique pattern that I found in one of my sneaky places, that little Cape Cod book. But this is a nice oldie, and the reason I like it so much, if you can see, is it's got hearts, right? These are, let me bring it closer. I taped it up here, but that's maybe too far away. It's got hearts. So with the swatch sets on fiber tape, I put in a square that was, I think, 10 by 10 or 12 by 12 of this. But just bear in mind that you could get a bigger piece of backing fabric, open it, double it, triple it, quadruple it, make it into a full-size runner, whatever you want. This is the pattern. And what I liked about it was you could either do, I mean, it has two holiday possibilities that are very obvious, right? Valentine's Day or St. Patrick's Day. So regardless, there's lots of things you could do here. You could also do choice number three, none of the above, and just really bust it out with hit or miss. So this is a great, simple, historic pattern for this swatch set because you could do it outliney, kind of Tiffany stained glass. You could use the bits you have and fill it in. You can really go in any direction with it. I think I'm going to be making one that's probably like a runner size of this design, like for the haul, because I really like the pattern and I like the possibilities. I was even thinking of doing one that was like, that went through the spring seasons, like doing like wintry colors to start, like kind of like beginning of the year winter colors, and then into like the pinks and reds of Valentine's Day, maybe not red, maybe more like pinks, and then toward like the spring Eastery colors and the green of St. Patrick's Day, kind of doing like a change. It would be a seasonal thing. Maybe that'd be better as a runner for the table, like a little table thing. But I thought that was really neat. I was really happy with that because I'm just so busy right now. I have not been putting out patterns the way I love to. I love to, and I just have not had the time. So I wanted to have something that kind of represented some of the holidays. If you were missing it too, and you were looking to see what I was putting out, it's just crazy times right now. And I will get back to Ground Zero at some point. That was an awful reference. Doreen, Carol, good to see you. You are always wanted. You are just on time. Wishing Well says, LOL, I'm using a bracelet my husband made me to hold the floss. That's amazing. On the first few minutes I was working on it, I got caught. Yeah, absolutely. So hubby came to the rescue. It's so, this is what we were talking about yesterday when we were live. We were saying like, when you can solve your own problems, like you diagnose what's going wrong with your work, and you solve your own problems, there's nothing better than that. And it's such a huge confidence builder when you start doing that, right? I'm so bad at this because something happens and I'm like, oh, great. Here, it's like I lose my mind. But trying to get better and better, right? 222, trying to get better and better at giving it the hot minute and just cooling off for a second, thinking about it, because so many problems can be solved with just some clear thought and not overreacting, right? And just basic problem solving. So hobbies are often great for that. And we were talking about this in class too, in all the classes that we do, just substituting your tools and stuff. The whole mindset that we get into sometimes that, it's not working, whether it's your hooking, your punching, your life, it's not working. And you start to think, why me? Why me? This always happens to me. Why? I must be bad at this. I must be bad at punching. I must not be meant to be a rug hooker. And it's really not that, is it? With rug crafts, it really is more like there's something wrong technically, and you just haven't figured out what it is yet. And as soon as you do, it ain't going to be wrong anymore, right? So this is one of the things we have to keep reminding ourselves, that it's never the person who's not meant to do the craft. It's that you are having a technical problem, and as soon as you diagnose what that technical problem is, it's going to be fixed, right? At least you know where to go with it. So we just have to remind ourselves of that, because people quit too easily at starting new things, and it's not a question of talent, is it? It's a question of just punching or hooking and simple stuff that can really trip you up. So that's good. That's a good sentiment. And Becky says, what a fun pattern. Yep, they are all gone in the mail for this moment, and there are, I think, maybe 3 or 4 swatch sets left. So if you think that you might be interested in this set, I would do it sooner rather than later, because dyeing is not something I have a lot of time for at this moment. Hopefully soon. And I mentioned that we're doing our MCM class starting tonight and another one on Sunday. A bunch of things happening. Oh, you know what else is happening? This is my project for this evening. It's time. It's definitely time. I've been going back and forth with Rob, the nephew of Vic, right, who wrote this book, the Alice Butler Book of Hook Drugs. And it is time. It's time to start putting them up on the website. I'm going to put them up as patterns first, all of them. Because we're at a point where we're starting to look at the needlepoint designs, and I'll put those up too. But it's definitely time. I've got a lot of help with tracing these. This is the starfish one, right, Mandy? This one's coming to you on linen. But yeah, I'm doing them all in 2 sizes, like one kind of smaller size if you want to just do it kind of quickly, or if you want to mini punch it, that kind of thing, just to have a representation of what that Alice Butler image is. And then ones that are larger like this that are for the wall, for the floor or the wall. So yeah, these are going to be coming out. I'm hoping to get a few online today. And the Brownian movement, right? This really cool one that is the cover of the book. And I didn't know, because the way that this pattern is described in this book is that it is the pattern that the refrigerator was making. Do you remember this? As just the constant humming of it and use of it, it traveled a little bit across the kitchen floor and in the butler's house, and this is the pattern that it made on the floor. And I guess it is called, I didn't know that this was a scientific term. I guess when something does move kind of on its own volition in a weird pattern, right, like the refrigerator, that is just a general term for that movement, right? Maybe that's not the right word, movement, but you know what I mean. I guess there's many things that could create Brownian movement, but this is what happened on the butler's floor. So that's kind of exciting. Oh, you don't see the swatches on the website? Oh, no. All right. Well, in the Facebook group, I just changed the banner to show the swatches. If you Google, on the website, if you Google tea or vintage tea, they're called Vintage Tea Room. They should be there. But I just, on our Facebook group, the Rug Cooking and Punch Needle Club, I put it as a banner, and I made the comment or the title of that photograph the link. So that should help too. Let me know if that works. Yeah, it should be there. I was on a minute ago, and I saw them when I was changing that banner. Leave it to me to screw it up. I hope I didn't somehow delete it or something like that. But speaking of links, remember in yesterday's video and also in today's video, I think if it's there, I put it there, the link to the video I recorded yesterday if you would like a chance to win a copy of this book that we are covering this week, right? This is a giveaway sponsored by Rug Cooking Magazine. This is one of their books by Tamara Pavich. We enjoyed it so much at coffee time yesterday. We're going to dig back into it right now, but 3 people will be chosen on Monday as winners, Monday, February 7. I'll do that right at the beginning of coffee time on Monday. So make sure that you click on the link to this video on the Ribbon Candy Hooking website. And I asked, what is your favorite vacation spot? You just put the comment in, and that automatically enters you, right? And on Monday, we'll know who the 3 winners are. Searching works. You don't see the swatches on website? Okay. I'm keeping an eye on that. Because I feel like, did I do that? If I accidentally deleted it, it would be so typical, right? To be continued. So speaking of to be continued, let's pick up where we left off yesterday. We had such a nice episode yesterday looking at the Tamara Pavich book. And I mentioned this, so I'm going to pick up where we started, but the whole beginning of the book are like short blasts of a specific subject. Like we're talking about friends who inspire, the wool itself, a stray word or phrase, art of all kinds, beauty and humble things, the simplicity of shapes, right? All these different categories where she just talks for a couple of pages and shows you a few examples of something that fit that kind of criteria. So it's really interesting how it's broken up, not really into chapters, but into segments to just give you these quick flashes, these kind of points to say, for example, family and story. Like just to think in terms of inspiration, because this is an inspiration book about designing. It's called Designed by You. People who get their inspiration and their ideas for their rugs from family and family stories, right? So this is a big category of designing. And the quote that she uses at the beginning of this chapter is by Ellen Goodman, and it says, "What the next generation will value most is not what we owned, but the evidence of who we were and the tales of how we lived." And that is so true, isn't it? Because if you think about it, how many people, when they get to be a certain age are looking to get rid of stuff because their kids don't want it? I mean, this is just the story of the world, right? It's the story of the world turning, of tastes changing. It's not about what we've gotten, what we own. It's about what we did, and all of this beautiful storytelling that is within families and friend groups, cultures, geography, right? Things that you share in common. So this is a really great subject to include. The set is there if you specifically search for Vintage Tea Room. Thank you, Martha. And we're working on the site. If you've noticed, it looks completely different. Jay did like a big overhaul to the look of it. We're trying to make it easier to use. You'd think it'd be so easy these days to do this stuff, wouldn't you? But it's still tricky to use. I have trouble using my own site. This is all 2022 stuff. But thank you, Martha. So if you're looking for these colors, vintage tea set, that's the name of the swatch set. I'll put them like right on the top too later with the Alice Butler. I'll get some of those up and I'll put those in. Also, these are all available as individual colors too. So those are all there. I always struggle with photography, but those are all there too. If you want a specific color, you think you want more of something, these are the exact ones, right? So, you know, it's funny, I'm going to have to start putting together some kind of a chart because I haven't done a lot of dyeing lately, but I typically do, right? And I just noticed, this is something I figured out last night while I was doing some dyeing. I was looking for a color I couldn't find, and I was trying other ones and matching swatches. And I keep finding instances of when one color is the exact same pigment, color, powder, dye of another in another brand. For example, I made the discovery that Copenhagen Blue is by Cushing is exactly the same color. Of course, Cushing's there first as Dharma Trading's Alpine. And there's a whole bunch of these, right? I haven't been writing them down, but I should be writing them down because I always prefer to use Dharma just because it's the pot that opens instead of the envelope that, you know, like, what was that stuff that people were putting in envelopes like 20 years ago that was that was like making everybody super sick and everybody was scared about it. Remember that? God, that was so long ago. But that kind of a thing. So I will have to start centralizing all these notes I have, and if you have them too, let me know. Like that you figured out between brands, Prochem, Dharma, Cushing, all of the brands who make chemical dyes. You know, everybody wants to use the same colors, right? You can't necessarily use someone else's color and name. Not that people are spying and cracking formulas or anything like that, but it's just a bummer to buy two of the same thing from two different companies, right? Because they're not super expensive, but they're not cheap either. So interesting. That's a to be continued. Let me know if you know anything on that subject because I'd like to pool our information and come up with a very synthesized list of what the repeats are. If you're also a big dyer and you do a lot of shopping, we ought to know where the repeats are. So, Ricken powder. No, it was like, it had an X or a Z, didn't it? People were putting it in envelopes, or was this like a myth? I was living abroad when this happened. And it was a big thing. Oh, Mr. Smith is our first bomber of the day here with spamming. So family and story, this is a big deal. Recording your stories, this crosses over into using children's and grandchildren's drawings, those beautiful naive drawings where they tell their stories so simply. Those kinds of designs lend themselves so well to rug hooking, but also just telling our stories through rug hooking. I know my kids, both of them, particularly Jocelyn, at night always wants to hear what she calls the little mama stories. And I try to think of all the ones I can from when I was like her age, under 10. And my mother has more that she remembers about me and about my sister Jessica. And the kids always want to hear these little mama stories because I think they find it amazing, literally unbelievable that I was ever young, but also that I was naughty and I did bad things, you know, at school and things like that, you know, ripping all the doors off the advent calendar kind of stuff. Anthrax, that's it. Thank you. Yeah, that was it. That was a while ago, huh? But yeah, kids love our stories. And if you are thinking about making rugs that document family stories, that is certainly a sweet spot for everybody, isn't it? So that's what she's talking about here. And one of the pictures I had for you, let me come back over here and let's see. I'm going to do my sharing. All right, hang on. You know me. I have got, let me get rid of this one and maybe come to this one. Yes, that's it. So thanks, Courtney. Nancy, you got it. You guys got it. And Jill. So this is the example that she uses in the chapter about family and story. This is a beautiful example by Catherine Rose of Lincoln, Nebraska. And Catherine says of this piece, this is a family photo that has been hooked, right? Let me make it just a little bit bigger for you. You know, it reminds me of Jackie Kennedy so much, doesn't it? It's such a beautiful piece. Oh, here we go. There we go. So she says of this piece, I've always loved this photo of my mother at a function in the 1950s. Sharon Townsend was teaching a class, and since she specializes in people and faces, I designed this rug for the workshop. My mother looked so glamorous in the chiffon dress, like Jackie O. She managed a women's clothing store during my grown-up years, so her chiffon dress was part of who my mother was. The cigarette and the dress were the fashion of her time. The photo included a lamp and a window behind my mother. I loved the lamp, but I remembered Henri Matisse, one of my mother's favorite artists. Ooh, okay, I see where this is going. In his paintings, many times the subjects were beautiful women in rooms with wallpaper. So my background was inspired by his work. I enlarged a photo and then outlined it. I used red dot tracing fabric to put this design on linen. My friends and I had some special moments while I worked on this rug. My mother passed away in 1996. I felt a reconnection to her every time I picked it up and hooked it. That is just beautiful. That is just beautiful. So these are great ideas and great moments to try to capture. You know, as soon as I saw the cigarette in her hand, it just made my heart jump because we've had so much cancer in our family, and my dad from the smoking, but it was part of that era, wasn't it? He always said it was one of the civilized pleasures of life, right? It was just something from that time, capturing all of those little nuances from those old photos, you know, and also having the ability and the desire to change the photo. We've talked about this so many times, particularly when we looked at the books by Anne-Marie Littenberg, about choosing what you want in your background, right? So she chose to not do the window, which I think was a good call because that had potential to be confusing. Doing a frame behind the main subject always has potential to be confusing, right? It's good to frame the subject, but not necessarily with a bunch of panes, right? Because then your eye is searching a grid for what the story is, and the story really is the person. So I love this idea of also incorporating her mom's love for Matisse and doing a patterned background, a big oversized patterned wallpaper as a kind of hat tip to her favorite artist. Absolutely perfect. I love the way on this photo too that she made that lamp black. Now maybe it was that lamp shade, maybe it was, but it really creates a shape, kind of a silhouette, a little bit of mystery, very stylish color for that time too. Just a really beautiful piece. And she goes on to talk about different ideas when you're designing your own work, personal mythology. This is something that we talk about a lot. This is something that comes up a lot because we all have different faith or belief systems, right? Some of us are superstitious, some of us are religious, some of us are spiritual, some of us are something else, or you define yourself by the crossovers. You know, you don't want to be any one thing. Everybody has their own personal set of beliefs or some kind of a system in place, I think, when you reach a certain age, right? It's a work in progress. It's a moving target, but nonetheless, those are ideas that you can pull from to create your own story as a rug hooking piece, right? So not necessarily family and family stories, but more future driven, more you and where you see yourself going, that's a bit more spirituality put into the composition. She uses for a quote by the famous collage artist Joseph Campbell, right? If you want to go down a rabbit hole and you don't know Joseph Campbell, look up Joseph Campbell shadow boxes because he was like the king of the collage, right? One of the pioneers of collage as a medium. And he also did a beautiful box of Frida Kahlo because she really admired his work, right? They were contemporaries of each other. He wrote, "You are the hero of your own story." And it's almost begging to add the tag, and don't you forget it, because that it's so true. But sometimes you need somebody to say that to you. You need to see it in print. You are the hero of your own story. And any subject that you come up with is going to be a worthy subject and an important subject, right? Part of the story that you would like to tell. We can get so design driven and composition driven in our work, in our designing, but at the end of the day, the thing behind any composition is the idea, right? And if that idea isn't solid, you can put as many sheep and silos on a backing as you want, but it's not going to mean anything to you. So it is a good thing to be reminded to think about what your story is that you're trying to tell with your piece, and don't make that fatal mistake of trying to tell the story of your life in one piece, because it's too much. It's too much. There's too much variety and complexity, and it's disappointing when you feel like you can't get all the things in. It's the beginning of a series, right? And you can get all your other stories in other times, but try to crystallize an idea for one rug design. And then once you have the idea, think about composition and all the other things that Tamara is telling you about in this book that are great considerations. This book is not super technical in the way that it talks to you, right? It is great to be technical, and technical people prefer that kind of conversation. It's more paint by number, tell me where to put the line. But people who are less technical prefer to be spoken to in a more abstract way, because I'm saying this and you're hearing that, and that's okay. That will result in you coming up with a completely unique and special piece. It doesn't matter if what you heard is what I meant. Usually does in life, but with art it doesn't. It just matters that something that my mouth said or that this book wrote gave you an idea that is the germ of a thing that's going to turn into your next great masterpiece, right? In chapter 2, she really gets into the more technical stuff, like beginning your drawing, sketching, and again, it's still very conversational, right? There are no illustrations in this book with a flower with 75 different numbers on the petal to tell you where to put the shading. That's not the kind of book this is. So she's doing more stuff like this. She makes the point, Tamara, in this book, she makes the point that this is the kind of artist she is, right? This is the kind of writing in her notebook, doing some sketches, and she feels like, it's all right. But then look what it turns into, right? She makes these great points that you don't have to be the artist with the capital A to do phenomenal, stellar work like this, right? Just simple lines, and then you figure it out as you go on with your hooking. The hooking, again, it depends on how much you are technical versus creative. But for people who are more creative, it is enough to have a few lines down, and then the rest evolves organically as you hook. Even the colors, right? You do some color planning, but most people will color plan something and then change the colors many times anyway. People who are technical, who really prefer, show me where to put the color, I'm going to put it there, and it comes out great. This is maybe not your ideal scenario, right? Where you have very few lines and you're expected to evolve it into something. People who work more technically would like to see more lines on the backing fabric and just fill them in. But for people who think I am not a good artist, do something like this and just try a sketch, get it on your backing, get your colors out, and see how much of it you can plug in that you're happy with. Only second guess yourself when you got some good traction going, because there's no point in reversing work that you're doing while you're at the beginning or the middle of it, right? There's no point in, I'm guilty of this too, but I have learned just to leave it and sit with it for a little while, wait for the other colors to join the party, and once they're all there, the overall piece has a completely different look, right? And the things that I didn't like about it are often not things anymore. And I always say this, isn't it great when something bad just goes away? I mean, isn't that like the best? Like a toothache, a problem, a blemish, a worry, that's the best case scenario, isn't it? So you can't micromanage as you go. You can't helicopter yourself while you're working, right? You have to just wait and see. One of the other things that comes up in this chapter on design, let's come back over here and let's come to looks like it's going to be number 7 for us. So let me get rid of this little guy and open up this guy. Yeah, this is a Laura Kenny, her work, Truro, Nova Scotia, absolutely beautiful. This is an odd shape. Otherwise, I'd try to make it a lot bigger. But she does a lot with rectangular shapes, and they're all, I don't know where all these grids come from, but at least this is working, right? Let me just make it a hair bigger. There we go. Really? I wonder if you can see this too. It's like the dance of the grids. There we go. So Laura Kenny, she's one of my favorite rug hooking artists. She hooks very, very wide, very primitive. So this piece is called Brown Dress, number 8 cut. Designed and hooked by Laura Kenny, Truro, 2009. Absolutely beautiful. This is a wonderful piece of storytelling, like so much of her work. This reminds me of that story I was telling you, I think the last cocktail night, about that poetry night I went to when this girl took out a series of dresses on hangers and just recited poems that she'd written about the garment. And it was so sort of evocative and imaginative, and it just filled you with thought and inspiration, just hearing the poems. This has the same effect for me. Just looking at this dress, it puts up a lot of question marks about who wore it, the person, their taste, the function, what they wore it to. It's like that empty pair of green pants from Dr. Seuss, and nobody was in them. it's like that, isn't it? It's like a dress that is just kind of standing there on its own or laid out. It poses all kinds of thoughts and questions, and it's beautiful in its own right. Almost has a vase-like quality to it, right? With almost down around the base, a lot of decoration. It has almost like an ethnic feel to it in terms of the design of the dress. Absolutely beautiful. It's just simply called brown dress, but what a wonderful way to do some storytelling with a simple garment like this. If you have any photographs of people in your family, right, who, old photos who are wearing something exquisite, if you don't feel up to doing a portrait of the person, then why not just do the garment? Just sketch the garment that they're wearing and handle it in this style. Because this is another way of doing a really effective portrait. And this came up in the book that we gave away last time, right? The first of the series of 4 giveaway books, the one on portraits, again by Anne-Marie Littenberg. Just the idea that a portrait doesn't have to be of a person's face, right? The Rockwell illustration, right? The Norman Rockwell illustration of the garden shed, his wife Mary. The idea of using something that someone wore is also a way of telling a story about them. And it's not less than doing a picture of their face. That's very literal in terms of being a portrait. But there's lots of ways that you could do a portrait. Something that they wear, the surface of their desk, the pen cup holder, letter opener, coffee cup, right? All the sort of trappings of life. That reminds me of a great thing. Barbara, you sent me this beautiful book by Dion Fitzpatrick for Christmas. And I opened it today because sometimes I need a meditation, right? Like big time. And I found this one and I thought, this is such a wonderful, enabling quote. Get ready. For those of you who, I'm not even going to show you what the area around me looks like, are profoundly messy and disorganized and just always in too much of a hurry to put your junk away. Here comes the quote of the month. Don't hide your tools, your hands desire. Leave them out at the ready so you can sit for 5 or 10 minutes or 2 hours. Leave them there in the middle of your life to remind you what they have to offer. Set them up like an altar to your hands. There you go. So all that junk you have out on the table, guess what? It's your altar. It's your altar. That's super enabling. I absolutely love it. But the point is, I love the idea that the things that your hands touch are part of your day, part of your story, and part of your life, right? We tend to live in this streamlined culture in terms of Property Brothers, decor, home decorating, what the ideal is. Putting stuff away, right? That the ideal is to keep everything put away and hidden. But when you do that, you run the risk of hiding things that are central to who you are. And it is nice for your eye to just look out on the table and see some of your things there, right? It's not that you were too lazy to put them away. Sometimes it makes practical sense for them to be there because the idea is you will return to them hopefully sooner rather than later. So it is a beautiful thing to have your things about you, right? It's not necessarily like, I haven't cleaned my junk up today. What a pig. It's not that at all, is it? It's just part of who you are. A great portrait would be somebody's tools of whatever craft they do sitting on a table, right? I did for that church in, I think it was in Nova Scotia. What was it called? God, I'm so bad. Crystal, maybe you know. They have all the pillows, right? I did 3 pillows for them of 3 of the New England states, and one of them was Connecticut, and I was doing a hat tip to the number of impressionist artist colonies at the beginning of the 20th century that were in Connecticut, real hotbed of artists, and that whole composition was just an artist looking out at a very abbreviated view because the palette was the entire composition. And I hooked the palette, and it was so much fun hooking the palette because it was the ultimate hit or miss. But it was the idea of doing a kind of a portrait of the artist, but just showing the palette and the very clipped view that the palette was looking at. And all of the paints on the back. So many ways of handling your stories and your portraits, right? Hello, Paula. Oh, that's okay. Busy times, right? Barbara says, perfect. You should see my messy office. Now you know it's an altar, not an office, so that is okay. Carol, love this. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Carol. So let me see. Okay, we're doing okay. I'll go for a little bit longer. So the thumbnail that I used yesterday, right, was, let me show you, because this next chapter 3, the whole chapter 1 was about different themes, humble things, bright copper kettles, and all of those things that we talked about yesterday, right? And chapter 2 was about beginning your drawing, right? A little bit technical, not technical, but a little bit more technical, getting going on your drawing, things to think about. Chapter 3 is start with a style, right? So she's giving you all the tools that you need to get going. Chapter 1 was a bunch of ideas. It was like frenetic, a bunch of ideas just thrown at you, spitball, what's going to stick. Chapter 2 was, this is how you do it, baby. Get going with your drawing. Now think of like just 2 or 3 things, make that your start. And now chapter 3 is going to be even more narrow. Now you know what your theme might be, what you might want to evolve into your theme, into your main story. So what style are you going to use? Setting your style, making a choice about that. This is a big deal because if there's one, I hardly have any rules, right? Particularly with rug cooking, but you do have to be careful when you're doing a composition about mixing your style. And that's a real abstract one, right? That's why we do so many of these designing light classes every month, because we try to design in different ways, in different styles, similar to different schools or particular artists, right? Tonight is mid-century modern. Next month is a really good one. I'll announce as soon as we finish Sunday's class. It's going to be your favorite, I think. But choosing a style is important because while you can mix your material, while you can do mixed media, right, different techniques within your piece, mixing your style is the most risky, right? Because there's not that consistency, right? For example, extreme example, if you were going to hook the center of a rug, very tight and busy Pearl McGowan style, right? Lots of shading, many colors on flowers and leaves, a beautiful scroll in the center. And then around the border, you were going to do like a Mondrian, Cubist blockout. I don't know. I don't know. Big maybe, right? And if it's something that appeals, then absolutely forget about what I know or I don't know. But traditionally, crossing styles is like crossing wires, right? It's not the same as substituting color or adding different mediums or media. It's a little bit different and it can be tricky. So it is not a bad idea to think, I would like this in the style of Louis Comfort Tiffany, or I would like this in the style of Pearl McGowan. I would like this in the style of Klimt. It's good to have that in your head, to try to put whatever you want into the composition itself, but try to work in one style. Even with your 20 different kinds of materials, work in one style. In other words, she's saying, for example, using yesterday's thumbnail, which was this. This is a very particular style, isn't it? Now, this is also a great example of how to come up with inspiration, because this is a vintage piece of sheet music. You know how vintage sheet music that used to, individual songs, hit songs would come, fold out for the piano, and the covers in the 1900 through like the 1950s had beautiful covers that were done by proper artists, sometimes famous artists. People would frame their sheet music. They would play it. They would frame it. It was a piece of art. This is a vintage cover for a piece of sheet music. This is by Joanne Thomason of Newton, Ohio, 2005, adapted from a 1920s piece of sheet music. I wish I knew what song this was. I'm just trying to think by looking at it. I was thinking like a Valkyrie thing. But if it's a 1920s, it's got to be, I wonder what that is. What do you think? It's got a lighthouse beaming, something about home. It's got to be something about home, right? There's a kind of wild woman, it looks like, at the helm of this, what looks like a packet ship, right? It's got that very particular kind of set of sails. Beautiful sun, beautiful heart on the sail, and you can see these gray colors coming through, right? It might be that the orange shade was there. It might be that it was added, but it's smart. Regardless, it's very, very smart. There's some wisps in the sky of clouds, lots of sort of cirrus-type movement in the sky. Really, 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 and here it comes. Fly me to the moon. It could be Martha. It could be. Berchois. Yeah, Crystal, it was Berchois. That's it. Fantastic. Could be Fly Me to the Moon. It could be, what could it be? couldn't be Beyond the Sea, right? That's not the right era. That's too early, the 1920s. You know, there's so many songs in the 1920s that are such gems that we just don't know anymore. When I used to do some cabaret singing and things like that, I used to go through volumes of sheet music, and there were such beautiful songs that are completely unknown songs to us today that are so solid musically and beautiful. You know what? Let's go on a search for this. See if anybody, you know, I will look to, I'm just going to do a quick sheet music search later to see if I can figure this out because I would love to know. This is a beautiful piece. Regardless, Joanne did an amazing job with it. It's number 2 and number 4 cut wool on Scottish burlap. Really beautiful. She said she's drawn to designs of the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. She likes to wander around antique stores looking for images to adapt. There you go, searching for inspiration, right? I like the swirls and the movement in this design, Joanne said. The color plan is very close to the sheet music illustration. Um, you know, I wonder if this has to do with that. I'm going to stop with that musical called The Robber Bridegroom, right? I think that's about the right time period. Interesting. All right, I will stop with that for now. But going into different categories of thinking, like be naive, right? Be naive. Do you want to hook in a naive style? The style we just saw on the cover of that sheet music was very graphic, right? Very graphic. Graphic is things with heavy lines, outlining, no shading, but changing colors to represent a different area, right? So you're not doing shading, you're not doing any kind of subtle ombre transitioning. No, graphic is just one color and the next color. It's like a silk screen, right? There's no blending and there's no mixing. So a graphic style often can be a stained glass style, often has outlining or it looks cartoony, is very bold with no color change, no color transitions. So that's one style, and that's a great style. The naive style is completely different. If you think about, can be very graphic, but if you think about naive rug hooking that you've seen, it's often there is some attempt to shade, even if it's awkward, and it's often intentionally awkward because that's what gives hooked rug pieces that old look, that old-fashioned look, right? Trying to mix colors and anticipating what a truly old rug would look like with the color change that happens over decades. So naive style is a little bit different. Naive primitive style is different than graphic style. Graphic style means that you take a composition and you're handling it in a very graphic way, bold lines, no transitional colors. But if you're working in a primitive or naive style, you're doing different things, like you're fooling around with proportion and perspective. You've got cats that are bigger than houses. You've got mice that are bigger than corn stalks. You've blasted out the sizing on stuff. There's nothing literal about it. And color-wise, you can attempt some blending, but typically those kinds of compositions are hooked in a very wide cut. So you're not looking at detail and you're not looking at any kind of fineness, fine hooking. So totally different style. Design idea number 2, she says a little whimsy. She uses a quote from Puff the Magic Dragon, who lived by the sea, thinking about songs, whimsical things, childhood things, things that are just for fun, right? As subjects, but as also as a style. Because if you work in a whimsical style, you could work realistically, you could work graphically, you could work primitively, but color with whimsy, we're looking and expecting to find unrealistic and unexpected color. We're looking to find energy and playfulness when you're doing something in a whimsical style, right? So when you think about artists who are very graphic, right? Like, for example, Warhol, best example, because I think we all know what his work looks like. I wouldn't say that he was whimsical, right? I wouldn't say that he was playful. Whimsical art is more like this, right? Funny, fun subjects, color blasted out, a lot of unrealistic elements, can be shaded, right? This has quite a bit of pretty shading in it. Can be more, this has some great realistic touches too. Can be graphic. It's just the feel of it, right? It's just the style of it. Style is elusive. That's a tough one to define. And then she talks about, here's another idea, going geometric, right? Going geometric. And this will cross over to all of your styles too. But for example, this dog is a great example because you've just got your dog and then you've just blasted out the background with geometrics. So let's look at another example of that. This is going to be another great idea, right? Anything with a quilt design to me is a great idea. Quilts are so eternal in terms of, come on, you jerk. What a jerk. There we go. Um, this is like a sort of a log cabin, a twist on a log cabin. It's got a bit of tribal triangles and turquoise and blacks and coral colors. There's a lot going on here in terms of color and style, but it's very, very, very simple. So this is another idea for your designing. Go geo, she says, go geometric. This could work really, really well, whether you are a beginner or you are a very seasoned hooker. There can be challenging things that you can do with geometric work like this, right? Putting on the inside of the log cabin, like that inner square that's tipped, has those light pastel colors. That on the outside, you're seeing the other halves of the corresponding squares with this darker version of the same color. It looks very cool. It's like bordering on op art, isn't it? Oh, wishing well, farm well, see you soon. But just another great idea, another great direction to go in, right? So she talks about going geo. She talks about going heirloom. And this one is real important. I'm going to have to stop in a little while. We're getting super late. Old is the new. That's an anonymous quote. But she talks about, remember the one that she used, that I used yesterday, was from the Joel and Kate Kopp book. It was an old picture that, an old hooked rug that she redid in her own way. This is another one of those. Let me come back to you here. We're getting to the end of my pictures for you. This one. Come on, you. There we go. So this one we see a lot in the rug hooking world. This one is a very old rug. This has been rehooked, redone by Tamara Pavich, Council Bluffs, Iowa, 2009. This is an old rug design, right? So this is going to be a copyright-free design. This is from one of these old auction catalogs. This is a 19th century rug that many contemporary rug hookers are choosing because it's a very strong composition. A lot of, yes, thumbs up, please. A lot of variety to the styles of flowers, right? But is it the same style? Even though these flowers are all different, is the style the same? Yes, the style is the same. We're seeing outlining. It's clearer on some flowers than others. It is a very graphic style. It's very strongly outlined. There is no attempt at shading. They have done color changes by breaking down. If you look at the border of circles, those are kind of Macintosh, right? The Scottish artist Macintosh style roses that are broken down with lines. In place of shading, you're getting lines. You're getting cartoon style lines. So the style of this, although there's immense variety, the style of this is very consistent, and that's why a busy composition like this has worked for 150 years, because this is a great choice. Let me see if I think I've got one more. She talks about Impressionism and as an inspiration or as a style idea. Let me bring this one here. This one's very different. She talks about anthropology, different cultures. Beautiful quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Though we travel the world over to find the beautiful, we must carry it with us or we find it not. In other words, if you can't keep it in your heart, in your mind, in your person, in the front of what you're doing, there's no point in having seen it in the first place, right? So anthropology is another chapter where she talks about both style and inspiration. And that included this image, which I thought was absolutely beautiful, by Deborah Walland. It's called Praise House, number 6 cut wool on linen, designed and hooked by Deborah Walland, Bluffton, South Carolina, 2009. Deborah says, I designed this rug while living on Hilton Head Island. The Gullah are very church-centered. The Gullah are very church-centered, and their ancestors combined the Christian faith of the missionaries, mostly Methodist, with their own African rites. Music, dancing, and drumming were integral to their worship. The Praise House was a simple community meeting place and the house of worship prior to the modern churches. Their traditions continue today, although hand clapping has often replaced drumming. I had hoped to capture the energy of joyful praise and worship coming from these churches without a sense of time. I initially planned to include a moss-draped oak tree to give a sense of place, right, to give a very sort of Savannah or South Carolina kind of feel to it, but decided against and chose a background of indigo-dyed batik. That's really, really interesting. The Gullah are known for their batik dyeing. Indigo was a common plantation crop here. So this is just a super whimsical, very abstract, very graphic piece that is in the whimsical style, right? It crosses over anthropology element to it, whimsy element to it, historical element to it. I think it's interesting that in terms of what she chose and what she took away, that she did decide to take away the place and instead put in a color that partly represented the place, those indigo plantations. But the music is present, the energy is present. It's a very lively piece, really beautiful piece. So again, there will be no coffee time tomorrow because it's Thursday. I'll be back with you for cocktail time on Friday. But I just want to remind you, this book is wonderful. This is what we've been looking at this week, and it really is wonderful. There's so much more to it. And I'll think about whether we're going to look at it again on Friday or whether we're going to move on to a different subject. But I mean, literally every time you turn the page, there's a different idea, completely different idea, with beautiful examples of what she's talking about. So you can be you really understand real specifically what she means. It's not so abstract that you don't know what she's talking about, right? She's real specific. So it's a super helpful book for designers, for people who just love eye candy, something to keep on the bedside table. If you don't have this book, make sure that you go to that video on ribbon candy hooking and enter your comment onto the video so that you are automatically entered, and hopefully will be one of the 3 people who win this book on Monday, February 7th. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Karen says, I inherited some cross-stitch patterns from my great-grandmother that are very inspiring. Well, there you go. Those can translate literally into rug hooking patterns. Or you could create a kind of a montage, right? Ooh, interesting. There's so many things you could do with that. I just got a flash of like a composition with a kind of kitchen table with some cross-stitch patterns laid out and a cup of tea, maybe even a hand coming around, kind of. Ooh. Everything is inspiration, isn't it? And it's beautiful to use something from the past, from the family, in a contemporary composition. It's so nice to do cross-stitch patterns too. And I brought this up yesterday because this is one of my new soapbox themes, but I have been doing so much hooking into latch material. And because latch material as a backing, the mesh is so broad, so wide, so open gauged, right? It does have a bit of a resemblance to cross stitch because it's so enlarged. It's really picking out almost pixelated colors, and it reminds me more of cross stitch than any other kind of rug hooking or rug making. So interesting possibilities with that too. Oh, thanks, Pat. Oh, I'm glad. I hope I didn't miss any important comments. I think we're good. Hey, I will miss seeing you tomorrow. I'm going to get some work done. I'm going to try to get some Ellis Butlers up this afternoon. I'll try to get all of them up. Available for now as patterns, just because I don't have a ton of time right now to be dyeing fabric to kit them. But you know, if you want to hold your fire and wait until I offer them as kits, probably in a couple of weeks, maybe sooner. Maybe I'll have Erin, the girl who works with me, maybe I'll have her kit some of them up. You know, I could do that, right? I'm maybe being a bit lazy. I also want to offer all of them as latch hook patterns too. I want to do an either or because they are large and they are so ideal to latch, right? I mean, come on. Some of them are more complicated, but for people who are interested in latch or just want to take a break from working with any hook, I want to offer them as many things. So be looking out for those later today. And I'm guessing some of those swatch patterns sold. So hopefully there's enough there if you want one and you're watching this later. Otherwise, you know what? Tomorrow I won't be with you, but on Friday I will. We'll have a great cocktail night. Whatever we decide to do, we'll have a great time together on Friday. That will be 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In the meantime, if you're not signed up for the Designing Like Mid-Century Modern class tonight, that will be a ton of inspiration and fun. I'm really looking forward to that at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's not too late to hop on tonight or on Sunday when I repeat that class. I will see you all soon regardless. In the meantime, have a great afternoon and have a great day tomorrow. Bye, Paula.